afternoon. Andy Daster, Aaron Hale. Hey, Aaron, so you said next week your activity should spike. You're already one of our biggest Medicare producers. What do you got going on next week?
Yeah, we got some seminars finally kicking off, so we're getting ready for the big selling season, right? So we got a couple coming up in Arizona, and then we got a couple coming up in Nevada in September, and then it just goes from there to the end of the year, as you know, the mad rush. So
Give me some numbers. So you got a couple in Phoenix or Scottsdale or wherever. What are you expecting in terms of attendance at these seminars?
Yeah, I mean, RSVPs have already started coming in. One day's already capped out. I can only hold
Wow.
about 40 in the room, and I've already got a waiting list on the first day. Second day is probably got almost 30, so we'll hit it.
Nice.
It's not till for another week or so. Yeah. So,
And these are
but yeah,
all turning 65s. You've targeted them with your direct mail. You got your message down. You send them to the seminar. They RSVP. You do your thing, and then you follow up with whatever your follow-up process is.
yeah. No, we got some new technology too. I'm really excited about. We're going to start, the implementation of QR codes and booking your own appointments and like that's kind of neat for me. I mean, I'm old school and used to always do it on the business reply card. So
Yeah.
it's kind of fun to be able to do it to start. And then with your advice and Brandon out in Portland, Oregon, we're implementing all that technology now into all that CRM stuff, the tech agent, So that was the guy that spoke at the national conference. So yeah.
At your size, you got to get efficient. You've got to bring in technology. There's just no way to manage your in-force book. What do you think your book size is at this point?
Oh man, we're growing so fast. I think I always got to use the joke. I said, I'll remember every client I'll ever have because I only had like 50 or 70 of them. And then once you get to 400, 500, 750, and then you pass the 1,000 mark, then it's like, holy smokes, I don't remember any of these people.
Yeah, you're north of 1,000 now.
Yeah,
Good for
probably. Yep.
you.
Yeah, just
Man,
cruising.
that's
Yeah.
fantastic. And
So
I know that your favorite Medicare supplement, Medicare Advantage carriers United, but there is a problem with United, and that is they don't provide a lot of products you can stack.
right.
And so, if it's okay with you, I wanted to spend a little bit of time sharing with you some of the things that we have been talking about with agents now for quite a few years. And you asked to have a session set up where we can talk a little bit about that. And I appreciate you allowing me to record it and share this with others. And I sent you this document, but I kind of wanted to walk through it with you. So let me put it up. And it's not fancy or anything, but I wanted to talk a little bit about really the gaps in any and all Medicare plans. So you now have 1,000 clients. You have gotten them mostly from T65, mostly from seminars over the last 5 years or so. But what I wanted to share with you a little bit is where are some of the gaps above and beyond where traditional Medicare plans come short. So the first category I wanted to share with you, and stop me, and I want to have this be a discussion, are the most obvious ones. Obviously, if you're looking at Medicare Supplement or Medicare Advantage, you got deductibles and co-payments and co-insurances and out-of-pocket. And the fact of the matter is most seniors can't afford those. So that's why you already do things like Medicare Supplement with a Part D or a Medicare Advantage. But you'll notice with Medicare Advantage, I want to talk a little bit about hospital indemnity plans. So hospital indemnity plans are probably one of the fastest growing ancillary products that we sell. And here's kind of why. What's happened is on a Medicare Advantage plan, maximum out of pockets range from 3,500 to 4,500, sometimes 5,500, and sometimes north of that, depending on the plan that's chosen. And the truth of the matter is, most seniors don't have $5,000 laying around. They just don't have the money.
Right.
Even the clients that you have that tend to be well-to-do, the statistics show over and over again, they don't have $5,000 just laying there waiting for it to be used for healthcare. So, but here's what they do have. They got $50. They got $65 a month. They can afford $50, $60, $70 a month for a hospital indemnity plan. that helps cover those out-of-pocket costs, maybe even eliminates them, but they don't have $5,000. Now, you can't tell one of your clients, hey, by the way, I'm selling this to you because you don't have $5,000. That's a good way to get into an argument, right? But what you can do is say, look, Medicare Advantage plans are wonderful. Here's the only issue. They can provide significant out-of-pocket costs when you're having an unhealthy year. And Mrs. Jones, while I'd like to tell you that you're going to get healthier as you get older, we know that it's the opposite. So how do we protect ourselves against these out-of-pocket costs? Well, the answer is $40, $50, $60 a month, and we can practically eliminate those out-of-pocket expenses when it comes time to having something bad happen to you with a Medicare Advantage plan. Otherwise, you're exposed to those expenses, and right when you least expect it or can afford it, here comes a $5,000 bill that you weren't wanting to pay for. That's really where your hospital indemnity plan fits in. Just like we wouldn't enroll somebody in original A and B without a supplement, we should be thinking about the same thing with a Medicare Advantage plan. Without a hospital indemnity plan, it's leaving the client exposed to those out-of-pocket costs. So that's sort of the baseline for me. If supplement in Part D, Advantage and hospital indemnity, and that's sort of the baseline.
Okay.
Above that, there are 4 other areas that I encourage you to share with your clients. So the biggest gap, and I'll tell you this, we've only been talking about this gap for 20 years, is the catastrophic costs of long-term care, cognitive impairment, limitations on activities of daily living, rehab. These are the kinds of costs that wipe out most seniors. Let's just face it, that's just what it is. The statistics show it over and over and over again. You work your whole life, you save up for retirement, you retire, and then you have a healthcare problem. And then you can't take care of yourself, you spend down to where you're wiped out, broke, and on government assistance. I'm not saying this to be mean, I'm just saying that's just what the numbers tell you. But that doesn't have to happen. Obviously, buying long-term care insurance when you're 50 years old is your best case scenario, but a very small percentage of people actually did that. So now you're turning 65, not you, Aaron, but Mrs. Jones, turning 65. She didn't do anything about long-term care. Now what do? Well, the answer is extended care. No, it doesn't have as many benefits as long-term care, but the underwriting is easy. Almost anybody can get it unless they're currently receiving care. And the pricing is reasonable. $70, $80, $100 gets you a really nice extended care plan, and we can fit it into anybody's budget. But not doing so exposes somebody to $100,000, $200,000 or more. They don't have it. And if they do, they're wiped out by the time it's over. Every senior should have extended care. Now, if you're already poor, if you're already on welfare, getting Medicaid, don't worry about it. Medicaid's going to take care of your long-term care. If you're Warren Buffett, you got money. I wouldn't worry about it. But the vast majority of Americans, seniors, have money that they would like to keep, and they are risking most all of it because of long-term care. And they're exposed, and if they haven't done something about it, this is their opportunity to get a second shot at it. Even if they were declined for long-term care insurance before, even if they thought they were too old for it, even if they thought they were too sick for it, almost everybody can qualify for an extended care plan. And we now have so many options. Insurance carriers are piling into the market. Just a couple of years ago, the options were limited, but there's so many more options now. So that's the second bucket, but it's a big one. We talk about a $5,000 exposure. What about a $50,000? What about a $250,000 exposure? That's what long-term care is. The next category is cancer. So if you know of anybody that has had cancer, you know that no matter how good your health insurance is, under 65, over 65, group insurance, it doesn't matter. Cancer is the one condition, even though it's covered by health insurance, leaves significant out-of-pocket costs. Most recent data says the average Medicare beneficiary who gets cancer has an annual $5,000 to $7,000 in out-of-pocket costs, no matter how good their insurance is. That's where cancer insurance fits in. It's a cost most people can't afford. Cancer is just a reality of what it is. And the out-of-pocket costs include everything from drugs to treatments to travel and care at centers of excellence. I'll give you a personal story. You remember very well our former head of administration here, Tammy. She died of cancer right around 4 years ago. And she had perfectly good insurance. Of course, she wasn't on Medicare, but she had really good insurance. But she had a significant amount of out-of-pocket costs. First, there were certainly deductibles and co-insurances and things like that. But one of the things I learned, and I don't know if you've been through this, even though she wasn't my family member, I felt like I was going through it with a family member, is there were so many costs that insurance didn't cover that she had to cover out of pocket. There were so many costs that insurance denied because they didn't consider it to be it was off-label medications. Well, it's designed for this purpose, but the doctor said, hey, if you try this, this could work on your cancer. Insurance company said, no, that drug is for this, not for that, so you can't take that drug. And whether that is an Advantage plan or a prescription drug plan, they can choose as to whether or not your prescription is appropriate. They have the ability to authorize it or not authorize. So some of the biggest costs end up with off-label prescription drugs, even though the new donut hole or the maximum out-of-pocket on a drug plan has been eliminated. Another thing to keep in mind is just going to cancer centers that are centers of excellence. If you want to get the best cancer care, you better show up with some cash in your pocket, man, because they take no prisoners. They don't take crappy health plans. And not to mention all the kinds of treatments. When you're meeting with your doctor and they're telling you, hey, you got cancer, but we have a great plan to help you solve it. You don't want to make your insurance part of the reason why you can't get that treatment plan. You want to implement it and get the best possible results. Cancer is the one condition that I have seen in my experience that even though it's covered by Medicare plans, it still leaves people exposed with $5,000 to $7,000 a year in out-of-pocket expenses. Dental, vision, and hearing, I think, kind of goes without saying. The biggest thing I say about this is we don't have a consumer problem when it comes to dental. It is the most highly requested product in our portfolio, bar none. We have an agent problem. The agent, for some reason, has it in their head that this isn't important. They've decided for the client that dental is not important, that vision and hearing is not important, even though every single survey of seniors says the same thing, that they find this the most important product that they don't have other than their core Medicare plan. So this is something that we just have to keep bringing up. The consumers are going to buy it. And you add to the fact that a lot of dental coverage on Medicare Advantage plans is going to get cut back this year.
Right.
We don't know exactly who that is, and certainly we don't know what zip codes and geographies that might include, but it's been made pretty clear to the industry that they should expect lower dental benefits in 2025, but everybody's tightening up the belts. CMS is lowering reimbursements. Better get used to it and better have your own dental plan and not rely on your Advantage plan for dental coverage.
Yeah, and to your point, Andy, when I bring up dental, vision, hearing, I bet you my close ratio is like 90%.
So
I mean, every time.
That's the key, right? It's just bringing it up. They all buy it. They all want it.
They do.
Over and over and over again. Somehow agents, and I don't know what it is, they have it in their head that people shouldn't buy it, don't want it. I can't explain it. There's some kind of miscommunication. The consumer is saying this is one of my most highly demanded products. And yet the agent is like, nah, it's not important. And I was just mentioning to somebody earlier, it's probably one of the only products on this entire list that has no underwriting, no pre-existing condition limitations, no waiting periods. I mean, it's like the perfect insurance product to sell. Right?
They hold on to it, so it's good renewal income
and
to the agent too.
Are great, and the commissions are great. It is literally the perfect insurance product you could possibly sell, and agents don't do it.
It's a no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this last one, but I did want to reiterate my clients need to be thinking about their end of life, including their final expenses. And that's not just burial. In fact, I don't know if you've buried anybody lately. It's not that expensive. It really is all the other things that you can leave behind when you pass away. A big part of that are unpaid healthcare expenses and unpaid debts. Yes, the bank still wants their money back. They don't care that you died. If you have credit card bills or healthcare expenses, you got to pay them off. And unless you have money set aside for it, you're leaving your kids with debts you probably didn't think of. So with that being said, but before I kind of show you structurally how I structure this, questions, comments, thoughts about this slide?
I think it's just important that everybody has a roadmap. When even myself, I get in my groove. I write Medicare like the wind. You're going to do a Part D. You might do the dental, vision, hearing every time, but just seeing this in front of you really helps you just keep going on. Because, like to your point, you could have somebody who's really been affected by cancer, somebody who's currently got a mother in assisted living, and they're like, "I'm so glad you brought this up." So
Absolutely right. And as we go through this, we can't make the customer purchase all these things.
right.
And it's not even our responsibility to force them to do anything, right? We're not in the forcing business. But it is our responsibility to share with them where the gaps are in their Medicare plan, educate them on what the consequences might be, and then let them decide. They may decide they don't care. You know what? I've done my job. I feel good that I've done everything I can to share with them what could happen. And then at the end of the day, they got to feel comfortable with their plan and their budget. If you want to look at it graphically, this is kind of how I see a Medicare supplement stack. Nothing different here than what we just talked about. Medicare supplement, Part D, an extended care, cancer, DVH, and a final expense. And yes, you stack all those pieces together, and no, it is not overwhelming as long as you are explaining this part. If you're not explaining this part and then you get to the stacking, then they're like, well, what do I need all this insurance for? Are you just trying to oversell me stuff? But if you go through what the gaps are, well, then getting to this doesn't seem overwhelming because they see it as part of a plan. Now, Aaron, one of the things you and I have in common is that we're both CFPs. We're both certified financial planners. We went through the educational process to become financial planners. I have never done really any money management, and you do some. But really, where all of this stacking and planning came from is using the same principles from our CFP. That you have to look at the whole picture of somebody's scenario. And a lot of what you see here are using those same financial planning principles in what I would call healthcare planning. I might even argue that healthcare planning is equally important as financial planning. Because if you want to know how to get yourself wiped out, probably not bad investment advice. It's probably because you didn't plan for your healthcare right and you're getting wiped out. And if you don't believe me, again, look at the statistics. And it will say that Americans get wiped out because of healthcare, number one, more than anything else, and nothing else even comes close. It's healthcare. Despite all the trillions of dollars that are being spent on healthcare, it's still the number one way to go broke. So all this is what we just covered in a med substack, just showing it graphically. And then the same thing here is the stack for Medicare Advantage. Nothing new here. It's just putting the pieces together like a puzzle. So let's change gears a little bit and talk about, well, how do I get people to buy all this stuff? I think it's easier than people or agents think. I think the biggest mistake that agents make and why they sometimes struggle is when I work with a client, I start out by understanding what their budget is. And so often with turning 65s, I'll say, well, what were you paying before you were 65? How much was your Obamacare? Or how much was your group plan? And that gives me a little bit of a gauge. So often they'll say $1,200 a month. And I'll say something like, okay, well, now that you're turning into Medicare, well, what's your budget now? And they'll tell me. And it's almost never zero. Almost never. I've almost never had anybody go, yeah, I expect to go from 1,200 to zero. I'm sure it happens, but it's almost never. Usually, they'll say something like 500 or 600. Sometimes they'll just say anything less than 1,200 is good for me. So if you start at zero, it's almost impossible to work your way up. If you start at 1,200 and you land at 300, you're a freaking hero.
Right.
They think, wow, you mean you took care of everything? Wow. So, you know what? Hold on. Let me fix this real quick.
It's funny you say that. I just got a note from a guy who, same thing. It's almost the exact story. He's paying $950 a month for his Affordable Care Act plan. And, you write him three or four different things, including Part B. And he's like, you're a savior.
Right.
Yeah, you've
But
cut the bill
somehow,
in half.
somehow agents have it in their head that what seniors want is the cheapest.
Yeah,
And
no,
yet
not
there
at all.
is
Not at
no
all.
survey that has ever been created where a senior says, I just want what the cheapest healthcare I can get is. Never. Nobody says that. Again,
No.
got an agent issue. So if you look at a Medicare supplement stack, we can fit into most people's budget, even if it's only $200 or $300. And most seniors will tell you, if they could get the best healthcare possible for a couple of $100 a month,
Absolutely.
all day, every day.
Yep.
It's not zero. So I never, ever, ever start my discussion with this is going to cost you a zero because you can't work up from that. So here's a med sup stack where we're adding a med sup plus a Part D plus an extended care plus a cancer, a dental and vision, and we're still keeping it to $200 to $300. Now you can, when a client says, well, it's still too expensive for me, I am very hesitant to remove a piece. My typical go-to is, well, let's reduce some benefits to get this in your price range. But most people can afford $200 or $300 a person. This is not out of people's budgets.
Right.
And so if they say, well, hey, I need to shave $50 or $70, I'd rather cut benefit than eliminate something. Now, if they eliminate it, that's different.
Right.
They have the right to eliminate anything they want. But the way I do it is I would sooner reduce benefits and keep all the pieces than to eliminate pieces as a way to save some money. So that's why in this example, these are just two examples of a med sub stack, a $300 flavor and a $220 flavor. But you can create these in whatever you want. Depends on the geography too, right? In certain markets, maybe like Phoenix, a little more expensive. Maybe this has to be a $300 and $400 budget. I don't know. But you get the point. If you start at zero, it's hard to work up. Now you probably can't start at 1,000 either because you're going to get people sticker shock. But I don't know of seniors that would refuse a quality, comprehensive plan for a couple $100 a month. I just don't think they will. The numbers prove it out. So that's how you do it with a med sub stack. Let me just really quickly fix this. Nope, that's already fixed. So then here's how you do it with Medicare Advantage. It's the same thing. Even though you'll notice you're starting out with a zero premium Med Advantage, but that's not where it ends. You're still going to want to add a hospital indemnity, an extended care, a cancer, dental vision, and you're still keeping it under $200. People can afford $200. They can't afford $4,000 or $5,000. They can't afford long-term care at $250,000. They want dental and vision. They can't afford the out-of-pocket of $4,000 to $7,000 in cancer. You can really do a fantastic job for your client for $200.
Right. And I have to say, but today that's just, I mean, that's kind of low end.
Yeah, this is a deal every agent could sell every single time.
All the time. You shouldn't have that in your head at all. In fact, one of the things I generally will say at my seminar, or I would do it like if I was presenting this right now to a client, I say, yeah, well, a lot of agents that don't know what they're doing or they're too young, they'd say, oh, well, let's just get rid of some of these things. You don't need it. That's actually the incorrect way to do it. Maybe we'll just cut back on some of these benefits so that you do have this coverage. So
Absolutely right. And here's the thing, this isn't a foreign concept as much as agents like to think so. When you go work at General Motor, you don't go check in at HR on your first day and they go, well, here's your health insurance, but you don't need any of this other stuff, right? You have a whole cafeteria of benefits based upon your family circumstances, based upon your budget, and you put together an entire plan for you and your family. Well, that doesn't change when you go on Medicare. Medicare is not like this one thing that solves all your problems. There's still all these gaps. So this is nothing but creating like a group benefits plan for Medicare beneficiaries so that they understand where their holes are. But there's one big difference between somebody working on a group plan and somebody who's retired on a Medicare plan. On a group plan, when you're younger, you can earn the money that you need to try to make up some of those costs. Right. Once you're retired, your earnings capacity becomes limited, and the last thing you can do is afford $5, $10, $15, $20,000 in out-of-pocket costs on a fixed income. That's where this becomes even more important for fixed income people.
Well, and I think one of the things you've learned, Andy, and so have I, is the longer you're in this business and the longer you do this stuff, when you first get into this, you think you're just selling a product that perhaps maybe your client won't use, right? But at the longer you're in this game, you're like, wow, people claim on all of these things. And then they write you and they tell you things like, why didn't you sell my husband more life insurance?
Right, exactly.
And it's like, whoa. And when that hits you, you're like, you become more passionate and more confident in these. So if you're newer to this game, just realize that clients claim on all these policies all the time. So
absolutely. And here's the thing. If you're a newer agent and you're thinking this is a lot of stuff to know, here's the thing. You don't have to make people do this, right? I mean, some are going to do it, some are not going to do it. But at least if you've done your job, you can sleep at night that if they pulled something out and they still ended up getting hit with a big bill that they weren't expecting, you could say, look, I shared with you how I do this. And if you do this consistently, I think, Aaron, that's one of the things I would suggest to agents too. You have to do it every time, because the one time you don't is the one time you're going to end up with some client calling you up like, hey, what's this long-term care thing? You never talked to me about. I didn't know Medicare didn't cover it. That's the kind of scenario you don't want to be in. Do this every single time. Get into a habit. Now, earlier we talked about, love United Healthcare. It's one of my favorite Medicare carriers. They don't have these kinds of products. So where do you go?
Right.
So our really three carrier workhorses when it comes to literally everything else on that screen is Manhattan, Aetna, and Wellaby. Those are the three core carriers that are in this space. They have all of these ancillary products. All of them have a shopping cart quoting and enrollment experience. So an agent can go into their portals and they can stack all these things into one single experience. They can go through the application process is all one. They can I'll have it signed for all in one. So much cleaner. One of the mistakes I've seen agents make is they will try to mix and match different carriers and different products because they think that the customer likes this product or wants that product from this carrier. And when we first started doing this, we actually used to do it that way. We used to call it the best in class approach. Have you heard me say this?
Mm-hmm.
So when we first launched it, we would take this company's cancer plan and this company's dental plan and this company's hospital indemnity plan, and we'd share it with the client like, these are the best ones in the industry. And the interesting thing is the client pushed back. Like, yeah, this is too complicated. I don't need 27 different ID cards and different insurance companies. Isn't there just one company that's good enough? And they kept pushing back until we finally realized all of these companies and all these plans have really, really good products. You shouldn't be ashamed or embarrassed to sell any of them. Pick your favorite. Pick a Manhattan, pick a Aetna, pick a Wellaby, and just run with it and offer it every single time. They're all good. They're all pretty close to being similar. Comp is pretty similar. Prices are comparable. Okay, maybe a little here and a little there. It's really not worth the hassle of trying to mix and match. It takes too much of your time. It's not worth the time. You're much better off doing this consistently than you are trying to piece together these pieces of the puzzle with all these different companies and products, thinking you're outsmarting yourself, which is sometimes what we try to do, right? Like, we're smart. We got to have this product. Customer doesn't care.
And one of the things, even me, is as many as I've written and all this stuff, and I've written tons of dental vision here, and I'm excited because you got my attention the other day at the annual conference when you're like, hey, Aaron, let's double that income this year, and I'm like, let's do it.
So okay, I'm glad you brought up the most important part, and that's money, right? So This is not hard. Everybody can do it. We have all the carriers and products in place, and it can literally double or triple your income. One of the things I think agents forget is that base Medicare plans are the lowest commissioned products in our portfolio. And I'm not saying we should just do this for commissions. We're not doing anything that is commission driven here. but it literally will double your income and it could triple it. And one of the things you'll find is this stuff sticks. So the renewals on this stuff will just last years and years and years for the most part until they die. One of the things we learned in the long-term care business, and the same thing holds true for extended care. Once people have that, they never drop it.
Right. Well,
they literally will never drop it.
One of the most, the one metric that I can't know that almost nobody can measure, Andy, that we all kind of forget and brush underneath the rug. Sometimes we all know about it, but you kind of forget about it, is that if you do this right, like for the husband, the spouse is going to want all the same things.
Absolutely. In fact, when you got couples, sometimes they have their own way of thinking it, but at the end of it, they need it all in order to make the husband happy with what he's looking for and the wife's happy with what she's looking for. And you're going to find out that they upsell each other.
Right.
Because none of them want to give up on a benefit. They're thinking, man, I don't want to be exposed to this.
Nope. No.
No, you're exactly right. So, okay, let's talk about next steps and a game plan for Aaron Hale, top Medicare producers. Starting next week, what are some of the things that you think are important for you to take from this and implement just as early as next week into your prospecting, into your sales process? What do you think are some keys there?
Yeah. So number one of the things that I've just generally done in the past is I didn't even bring it up. So how silly is that? So just by bringing this up at the workshop, which I will, I used to say, oh, this page right here, I'm not going to cover any of this stuff. Now I'm like, hey, don't discount this page. This page is almost as important as all the rest of the stuff I just talked about, right? So when we get together and have an appointment, you're already kind of selling that idea. When we get together, I'm going to explain this further and you'll be like, man, I am so glad I met this guy. That you start putting those thoughts in their head because you talk to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing and you're going to be underinsured and you don't want that today. So anyway, that's one thing. The second thing for me is I'm trying to build all these things that's got an automated flow so that I don't forget to do any of these things, right, at all. And then if there's any chance that I want to recapture those opportunities after those appointments, like for whatever reason, Andy, you know what I mean? Like you need to come back at them with some of that drip messaging. So those are the big three for me, is just bringing it up, then having a process to make sure I never miss it. But if I do, I need some other process to recapture it down the road. So
that's a great idea. I don't want agents thinking it's too late. I mean, you've built a book of 1,000 people. It's okay.
Never.
It's never too late. Now's the time. Now's the time to learn and understand how this all works and make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect our clients and give them all the information. We're an educational organization. Right. Our agents are educators and advisors, and this is the kind of way that we can separate ourselves, to your point, from some broker who's just trying to enroll somebody in an Advantage plan, some call center person. Why would you, make yourself vulnerable to some call center who's just enrolling people from plan to plan to plan? That's not really doing the client good.
Yeah, and Andy, just a testament to North American Life Plans, because I don't mind saying this, and I know you'll agree. When I go over my career, I go back 15 years ago, I had to do best in class with FMOs. I really had to, because FMOs didn't have everything. But North American has done such a good job of basically putting all this together so that I don't have to go to like 9 different FMOs anymore. I can just work with you guys. You guys do a fantastic job. So it just thrills me to death that we're finally getting there in our industry, which is just sad to say.
It really is. I thank you so much for the kind words. That means a lot coming from a guy that's been associated with this organization as long as almost anybody. So I'm glad that you've seen the progress that has been made, and thanks so much for all that you do. And thanks to your whole family. Frankly, it's when I say your whole family, your family's really been, a part of this organization for a long, long time. So that's just awesome. I appreciate the time, Aaron. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, anything in closing?
Well, let's have a great 2024 AAP, bud.
Absolutely. Keep me informed. All the best on the house.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You take care.
All right. Bye-bye.